Thanks everyone for joining one more workshop for cmBuilder, right? So the theme of today is that pool and whatever that is. So we are gonna cover a couple of interesting subjects as usual. So let me stop the music over here. Okay, cool. So our workshop agenda for today is to go first. Our main topic is going to be to learn a little bit of like some tricks on how to work without 3D models, several situations where you don't have a 3D model to work with, right? So what do you do in that situation? As a feature highlight, I'm going to show like how you can plan upcoming activities, like do 4 week look aheads or like a period of time look aheads. Usually it's 4 weeks. And how do you integrate that with in cmBuilder, how you can push these visualizations out. Um, some updates on the scenario toolbar and the new layout. And then later we're going to talk about some tips and tricks, right? So housekeeping items, the recording will be available in 24 hours on YouTube, and we're going to send an email to everyone. You can check out our previous workshops on YouTube as well, and you can use the QA or the chat over here for questions. Okay, cool. So let's start. A lot of the cmBuilder users today, like they are requesting more and more features related to the massing tool because several times you're not going to have a 3D model to work with, especially if you are in the pursuit stage, right? So we have like a couple ways that you can create a volume to represent the building that you're going to build in cmBuilder. And there are some levels of details that you can use, right? So over here you can see what is that you can do with a simple massing, what is that you can do with a detailed massing, or if you have massings and resources combined, how that looks like, right? So if I open cmBuilder over here, we can see like a couple of options over here. I'm gonna start talking about some tips and tricks that you can do with these massing tools. And over here, we can see the difference between like the three levels of kind of like details that you can use. Please ignore my architectural skills to build this building over here. I just wanted to show like what will be a situation that you're working with elements from our library, right? So simple massing tool is super easy, right? So if you have like a building shape, let's bring over here a drawing that would show that building shape for me. And I'm gonna put in this drawing to be above the terrain. Sometimes like when you have the drawing projected on the terrain, it will be behind other elements. So depending where you're using, what you're doing, it might be interesting to detach the drawing from the terrain. And this is a building that has like 18 levels and things like that, right? So I'm gonna really quickly over here create a simple massing that is basically one single extrusion from a sketch, right? So you can see instructions about that from our user guide. Oops. And another interesting thing about this is that every time that you're drawing a sketch, you should be working with a sketch that represent like that should be like looking from 2D view, right? And you're gonna start placing some points, and if you hold Shift while you're doing this, your increments of your lines will be in 45 degrees, so it's easier to draw the shape, right? So when I create a simple massing, you're gonna see that the massing itself is just like one simple extrusion from that shape, right? The massing showed up over here on top of the drawing because when I created my sketch, I selected the drawing as a reference, so it's bringing the massing from the top of the drawing, right? So this is one situation that we create something like this. When are you using this? Whenever you want to do work very fast, right? And you just want to create like shapes that you can plan around those shapes, right? So if this is the case, you can use the simple massing. However, whenever you want to do things with a little bit more details or like levels like this one, you're going to use a detail massing, which is one, it's a like a noder tool that we have that is being revamped. And I talked to the team today, and we should have like a new version of this tool coming out in either 2 or 3 weeks, where you're going to see a lot of new improvements on this. So I'm very excited about this one because it's a tool that a lot of people will use like quite frequently, right? So basically, this one you will create a massing that has the definition of floors, and you can type in over here how many floors you want, what is the typical floor height, and so on. And you have like this definition of levels, right? So these are two basic tools in cmBuilder that you can use to create your massings or your buildings. However, sometimes you want to do things that have more details, right? So what would be a situation where you are creating things with more details is if you want to show like the slabs or columns or trusses, steel columns, and packages of columns being built at once, and like beams and things like that, right? So in a situation like that, you're going to be working with a combination of the detail massing or the simple massing plus resources, right? So as I said over here, the new version of the detail massing is coming soon. So I'm linking over here a couple of different best practices on how to use the tools that we have today to create things like quickly, right? So one of the tools is to work with like a set of template lines or zones or anything that you can use the sketch to replicate the same shape several times. Like, so for example, if I am working with this building over here and I want to create the shape of this slab using a simple massing, one thing that you can do is to um, let me hide this zone that is in here. One second. So one thing that you can do is to draw a line that you know that you're going to be using the shape of that line several times to represent the slab edge, or lines to represent the grid lines, right? So I drew a line over here, several lines to represent these grid lines, and it's super easy to do that, right? So a way to do it would be, let's find like this part of the drawing over here. So you can create a line, one single line first, right, following the shape that you want. And then from this line, you can simply copy and paste it on the other grid lines. So you have like now several lines representing those grid lines, right? So I won't do all of them, but like you get the idea, right? So why is it important to have those grid lines? Because you can use them as references to create columns in different levels. So for example, I know that my columns are being repeated in this direction. So I can take this grid line that I just built over here and I can use it whenever I'm creating my pattern of columns. Over here in cmBuilder, if you go into the building elements category of our resource library, you're going to find a couple categories over here that have items that you're going to use for your structural design. Like for example, this cladding over here, you're going to find them in the exterior envelope. So there is a cladding panel over here, right? So these windows, you're going to find them in here, horizontal windows or vertical windows, right? Doors and all of that. These walls over here, for example, you're going to find them in our structural elements. So there is a concrete wall. So basically, you can use these elements from our library to build the structural elements that you have on your building. And with the help of like these 3D lines that I created over here, for example, I can go ahead and create a rectangular column like pattern. So instead of drawing like the shape of the line every time that I want to use it, I can simply click on project and then select that shape of that line over there. So this line is very thin, that's why I can select it. Oops, selecting a different line over there, sorry. So let me edit this one. One second. So this line over here, let me make it a little bit thicker because like it's hard to select them when they're this line, this thing, right? So I can take now this rectangular column, put that as a polyline, and then when I create my sketch, instead of like drawing it again, I'm gonna select that line and it will use that line as my sketch. And when I hit confirm over here, a set of like columns will show up, right? So these columns, this patternization over here is defined by the custom spacing that you see over here. By default, it's going to be 5 meters or whatever that is in feet. And then you can take your drawings and use it as a reference to like to see what's going on the on how you're going to work with your pattern, right? So now I can take these columns over here and move them to the correct spots, right? and then define the correct spacing between them. Correct spacing is 4.81. So I can go over here and do 4.81 or 5 meters or whatever it is. But keep in mind that your spacing will be evened out, right? So over here, like the first grid line is showing 4.81, but all the others are showing 5, and then the last one is showing 4.81 again, right? And the pattern that is created is gonna go all the way towards the end of the columns of the line that you create over here. So you can adjust them like to be shorter or longer depending what you need for your grids. So let me put this one as a 5 meters, and then I'm gonna position the first one on the one that is repeated over there. And now I have all my columns created, and there is an extra one over here that I can simply reduce the size of my line, and then the columns will show up. Okay. So now to create the next one, you can simply copy and paste these objects and then place it on the next step, right? So now you have quickly created, like over there, a bunch of columns to define the shape of your building. Cool. So this brings me to the point of the second item over here, to try to find a balance between the detail levels, the detail level that you want and the effort that you're putting in it, right? So sometimes like you want to create something that is very, very accurate and precise in the right location, but keep in mind that cmBuilder is a visualization tool, and sometimes it's easier for you to do something that is approximate and that is not exactly what it is, so you can work faster because the message that you're sending across is the same. You're going to build your building from drawings. You're not going to build your building from the simulation in cmBuilder. So you have some room to adjust things and focus more on the visualization than the accuracy of elements. Right. So that being said, instead of like creating like this set of columns for the 5 meter like grid lines, I can now create I can create like all of these columns on pretending that the spacing between all of them is 5 meters, right? Instead of like doing a 4.81 over here and a 4.81 over here. So this will allow me to work with a lot faster than like doing precise kind of like placement. And when you look at things like this, for example, where this is a building that exists and you create your massings and you're not like using a combination of these elements, it's almost like impercept like you can almost not tell the difference about like the disposition of these columns over here and these columns over here, because like they're very approximated, right? And they're showing the steps that you want to create, right? So keep that in mind to balance that level of detail that you're taking out of it and the effort that you're putting in. Cool. So these columns over here, you see that they are all created like that, and these ones they have different sizes and different spaces and so on. But if I show the sequence of execution of this building using the massing tool and this one over here, the sequence is going to be pretty much the same. Cool. The next step is to create linear elements based on the sequence grouping, right? So like this is very common for big warehouses in horizontal projects like power plants and things like that, where you have factories that are like that have these steel structures that are like that you're planning on packages, right? You have like a zone one and you're going to do the whole structure on zone one, then you're going to move to zone two, and then zone one, you're going to be working with like walls and things like that. So you can create a packing of like, instead of creating all of these columns in one single object, I created them in different packages. And the same thing with the trusses, because I want to show them in different stages, right? So to do that, for example, I will go to this next milestone over here, and I'll take all of these elements and put them to begin at this milestone. And then on the next one, I'm going to put all of these elements to begin at this milestone. And then on the next one, I'm going to take all of these elements and put them to begin at this milestone. So now I have like a sequence of execution for these zones in my building, right? So instead of creating like all of the elements at once, you can do like in packages like that. And to do that, you can like create your templates just like I did over here with the grid lines, but using zones or 3D lines as well, because you can, for example, if I were to do the same thing that I did over here on the side, I can create a zone. Let me do like a rectangle over here. and this zone is going to be yellowish. Then I'm going to create another one on the right beside it that's going to be red, and then create another one that's going to be right beside it. It's going to be green. Okay. So now if I am to create like the same kind of like packaging of elements, I can take, let's say, my steel I-beam column, and instead of like drawing each one of the lines, I'm going to project the shape of the zone, and then I can maybe delete this line over here, and I'll have like a set of lines created over there. I might need another uh, an extra column over here, so I can extend just this a little bit, so you will have enough space for the software to create that other pattern, right? That other spacing. And then you adjust your height, and now I'm gonna go and copy paste this element over here because I don't want to adjust the height for the next one. And I'm going to edit the sketch, redraw, project this shape now, and then delete this one, and then see what is the result. And then I can see that I need to extend this line over here a little bit to create that. And then I'm going to copy paste that same element, add the sketch, redraw, project this shape. And now I'm going to delete these shoe lines, but I cannot have yet a sketch that has two independent lines. This is coming. And because of that, I'm going to delete one of them, and then we use that to create the spacing of the next one, right? So this one over here, like it's going to have like a column that is repeated, so I can adjust that and then have it like this, and then have my spacing over there. And this one, I'm going to copy paste and put it over here just to be a little bit quicker, right? So now I have like all of these columns related to the zones, kind of like created in groups that are representing what is the sequence of my execution, right? So I could do the same thing with the trusses and like just assign them to packages of milestone now. Cool. If it's relevant for your project for you to have the columns in the exact same spot with the exact same size, one thing that I suggest is for you to create a library in cmBuilder, like in the corner of your space or things like that, with the columns and the elements already like defined to the sizes that you want, and then you can simply copy and paste these elements, right? So for example, this column C1 over here, it has a radius of 0.6 meters, so like a diameter of 1.2. This one over here has a diameter of 0.6. This one over here has the length and width like of the section 0.6 and 0.6. This one over here has 1.1, 0.6. You got the idea, right? So same thing with doors and in windows. You can create these libraries over here from your structural drawings, from your architectural drawings. And then every time that you're going to use them, you simply take one of these, copy paste, and put them into place, right? So this is a very easy way for you to save some time without having to keep adjusting every single element every time that you place it. Cool. And of course, you're going to be using the drawing as a reference. So you can do this kind of like work like this. And you could do this kind of work. And then you go ahead and start placing these columns in each one of these stages, for example. Okay. So this is a great way for you to save some time as well. And going to the next step over here, use detail massing or simple massing projections to create repeating slabs. So this is an interesting idea because the detail massing tool, it allows you to create a shape, right? And like that shape is going to be repeated upward several times. So for example, if I take a drawing, let me take one of the drawings that represents this building over here from level 7, for example. And I'm going to move this drawing to another location. Let's put it over here. And I want to create exactly the same building. So what are the options that I have, right? So option number 1 is to use a detail massing to create those repeating slabs. So if I go over here and do a detail massing, I'm going to create one extra massing, and I'm going to go ahead and start drawing this without that label over there because it gets in the way several times. And I'm gonna do like a simpler version of this because I don't want to spend too much time drawing the shapes. Okay, so let's go ahead and do something like that. I'm gonna put something more detailed over here on the other side. Cool. So this building over here has 7 levels. So I'm not gonna create like level of detail massing with 7 levels. I'm gonna create a detail massing with 7 levels twice, 14 levels minus 1, and you're gonna understand why, right? So I'm gonna create a 14 over here, so just so we can understand how it works. And then when I hit confirm, you notice that now like all of these levels that showed up in here, and they are they're higher than the building is higher than it's supposed to be. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take all the transparent levels, select them all, holding control, and then I'm gonna go ahead and go into the first milestone over here, maybe the second one. I know the milestone where everything showed up. Yeah, the first milestone over here, and I'm gonna hide these objects on the first milestone, right? So the reason why I'm hiding these objects on the first milestone is because the detail massing is using legacy kind of like sequencing method where you hide and show objects per milestone, but this is changing on the next version that's coming on 3 weeks, right? But basically what I'm doing, I'm hiding these intermediate levels on the first milestone because I don't want to see them anymore in any of the other milestones. So if I keep going over here, these elements that won't show up. And then when I open the table to edit this, I can put in the slab thickness in like on the odd levels, right? So I'm gonna put in like a slab thickness of like 20 centimeters over here. Maybe this is too small, but let's just pretend that our concrete is the best concrete in the world. So, and now when you do that, you have like intermediate slabs created like that, right? Showing just the slab edges, right? So now I have a model that shows all my slab edges and so on and so forth. And if I need to adjust one of these slabs, I can just select them and then go in here, going to current only or current in all above, and you can adjust the slab to have like a different shape created just for that slab at that level. Cool. So when I hit done over here, now I have my slab edge created like that. However, the reason why I said that you can create like the double floors minus 1 is because the top floor over here, you're not going to use it for anything, right? So you can just like do, instead of like 14 levels, you do 13 levels for the a beauty with 7 floors. Cool. So now you have like all of these lab edges over here, and let me just like redo that shape over there because this looks super weird. And if I wanted to add columns now, I would go ahead and go into my resource library over here, go into building elements, and then I can start adding my columns. So let's say that I'm gonna add columns like using the perimeter of this building. I can, actually the perimeter of this building wouldn't make much sense for the columns, so I'm gonna just add columns like this and hit confirm. And now I'm gonna bring these guys inward like that, and I'm gonna adjust the height for this columns to fit that idea over there, right? So from here, I can now copy paste this grid of columns to represent that I have columns inside of my building and so on and so forth. Cool. So now how do I create a sequence of this, right? So to create a sequence with like a detail massing like this, you need to, like I mentioned, for now, you need to hide and show these elements in different milestones. So I can hide them all in here. And for the columns, I'm gonna go and assign them to milestone in the future. So now on the second milestone over here, I'm gonna go and show the first level. And then on the third milestone over here, I'm gonna select all of these columns and I'm gonna put them to begin at this milestone. Now, when I go to the next level, I want to show the third level over here. If I show the second one, it's going to be that transparent one. So I'm going to show the second level. And if I want to show columns going up over here, instead of adding a new like set of columns above, I'm going to simply go in here and adjust and make the height of this column dynamic. It already is dynamic by default, but you can bring this column up, and then you can do the same for the others, right? 6.8, and then this one's going to be 6.8. I don't even know if that's the right elevation to get to the other one, but you get the idea, right? And you can do that for all of these guys. And once you're done with it, you can now see that in the milestone prior, the columns will be on the just on the first level, and then when I add advance to the next milestone, they go up, right? And then on the next milestone, I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna go and show my next level, right? So it's just that play. You're just doing like these repeatedly to create a sequence of execution for your levels, right? Knowing that currently the detail massing has some limitations in terms of like how you create sequences and how you edit your sketch, you can also do the same thing that I did over here, but instead of using the detail massing, you can use a simple massing. So if I want to do this same work using the simple massing, I'm going to go over here in my first milestone and I'm going to bring back that drawing that I had over there. I think it was level 7. Yes, there you go. And with this drawing over here, I'm going to draw this using a simple massing. So let's do that. And I'm going to keep this showing. So if I want to use the simple massing because it has more capabilities of the sketch, you can draw the same shape over here with the simple massing, right? And then once you start creating your massings, you're going to create them with the thickness of your slab, like 0.2, for example. And then you can show your column set. Let's say I'm going to put these columns to show up over here on the second milestone. And on the third milestone, that you have like all of these columns. Let me put them to show up all over here. So on the next milestone, you can take this slab, copy, paste, and then you can like place it anywhere. Like this slab is going to show anywhere. And then you go in, edit the sketch, click over here to define the sketch elevation for your scene, and then you take like the top level of your column, for example, and now the elevation of that slab is going to be was going to start from that column, and then you redraw and project the slab below, and then you have like now another slab over here on the top. But these are independent objects, okay? So if you change the shape of one, they won't change. They won't change the shape of the others. So if like you decide to change the shape of like a level over here below because you want to create, let's say, a entry point over here, something like that, right? And you want that shape to be replicated on the above, you can edit the sketch from the above, click on redraw, project, and then take the sketch of the one below, and then it will add that little shape over there. Cool. So there are advantages and disadvantages about using the detail massing or the simple massing, but these will all be mostly solved once we deploy the new massing tool in a couple weeks. Cool. So, okay, so use the vertical elements as a height dynamic. Okay, I covered this part already, and I already covered this one over here. So, like, just let's confirm that like you have several options of like objects from our library that you can use more than these ones over here. And one thing that was a tip from Callum that I really liked is the ability for you to like, for example, if you want to put textures on these like rooftops or things like that. And this is for premium users only. You can create a zone, for example, that will show like asphalt color, and then you put the zone on top of your building just to represent that you're gonna have like an asphalt rooftop over there, right? So you can like go and put like the waterproofing of your the stage of the waterproofing of your building, if so on and so forth, right? So if I want to do the same thing with this roof over here, I can now create a zone and I will start my zone on top of this slab. I will project the shape of this slab, hit confirm. Then I'm gonna go over here and put the asphalt color, you know. So now I have like that shape placed over there. Cool. There you go. And then like you can create a staging for them as well. Okay. If you guys have any questions about the things that I showed over here, I know these were like different tips and tricks packed into one like single theme, but it's an interesting way of like using the massing tool to capture like these more complex shapes, not just the massing, but the resources as well. You can put any questions over there in the QA. And if there's something that Nikon can answer or want me to show live, just give me a heads up. Okay, Nikon?
Yep. One thing I will say is Eric raised a suggestion for us to cover in future workshops, which was like how our kind of different tools and features within cmBuilder fit to different workflows for various stages of your project, from like the early stages and maybe your pursuit phase, to then going on to later phases and actually like building the job. So I would say this is actually one use case that does fit into that of what Pedro was showing. So like using massing in the early stages, and then once you get to the latter stages of your project, going into, if you still don't have a model, actually building out a model like this.
Yeah. And just to like bring the attention to the fact that I'm working on a completely clear site, and I did this on purpose. I didn't use like a site that has all the nice textures and elements from cmBuilder like this one, just because like I wanted to be very focused on like showing just the tools itself, not like how you can insert this inside the context of your project and your on your kind of creating your simulations, more to understand how you can create these models quickly using the tools that we have in cmBuilder. Okay, so the next step of our presentation is how to create those reports of like lookaheads and things like that, right? So the idea is how you can plan your upcoming activities for like a short like term in the future, and also how you can present that and then update, right? So taking like assuming that you already have a presentation done for the steps of your construction, you have like elements created and already connected to your milestones properly and so on and so forth, you're going to create a presentation for that, right? So that presentation can be like it will be like a set of like slides over here. So for example, I can go in my first slide and then placing a camera angle that is going to be like this one, right? Let's pretend that I'm doing the work over here and like I'm just defining where are going to be the next like stages of construction that we're going to have for this building. So I'm going to see all the different stages of construction, right? So I'm going to go and create my slides, create my call outs and all of that. And then like once I define all of this presentation in what I want to show, I will define now what is the time frame that I want to present, right? So the time frame can be defined like depending on how you're going to export this. So we do have like a support page over here that I'm going to put on the chat that shows how you can create this look ahead view. Using a live link or using a presentation slides or using a video, right? So the live link, you can define what is that you were exporting out of cmBuilder by clicking over here on export share, then click on share live link. And then in here in milestone presentation video, you're going to define what is the time frame that you want, right? So like, let's say that it's going to be 4 weeks. So I'm going to do from week 1 to week 5 over here, right? So when I generate a link to this and I send this to someone, that person will only be able to see the presentation within that time frame. So let's say later I want to do like the same thing from week 5 to week 10, right? And then I can create a link. This is going to be a separate link. This is a different link, right? So this you can copy and send it to people, and they will see only what is that you're planning within that time frame, right? So if I take the first one over there that I already set up the slideshow, I can go in here and open this. And then when I open that link that I generated, you're going to see that when I hit play, my time frame, my timeline will only show up like elements within that time frame. Okay. And of course, like this is a live link. So if you update anything on your presentation within that time frame, whoever has this link will see those updates. Okay. Now you can also export this in the form of images, right? So if I want to export this in the form of images, I'm gonna go over here in presentation slides, and I'm gonna deactivate all the slides that are selected. They show up selected by default. So you see that there's 0 slides selected, and I will only select the slides that falls within the time frame that I want to show. Now, when I export selected, which I usually suggest that you do with the medium quality because it's a good balance between how long it takes to export and the quality of the output. When I export this, I'm going to download now 5 images that will show like the slides that I created for those 5 different weeks. Okay, so this can be used. You can take these images and put like on a template that you have that you created for your company with your title blocks, and just show like these are the different images and the different things that we're planning to do on the next 4 weeks, right? So it's a good way to communicate in a form of a document. However, if you do want to communicate this work in a form of a video, you can also export a video. But for the video, like you need to define the time frame of how much of what you want to export by hiding and showing these milestones over here. So if I like collapse these elements, you can see that I can hide like specific milestones over here, and these milestones they won't play on my video once I hit export the video. Okay, so I won't do it for all of them. And a good idea for us right now that I just thought of, and Callum, if you can put a feature request for us on this, is to have like a hide all function over here, so like people can create those kind of like timeframes. But instead of Callum doing that, I'm gonna do it over here. It's good that I show everyone how you can do it. So like if you want to put in a feature request for cmBuilder, things that you want from the tool, you can simply come in here, put in a feature request, and I can put over here, let's say hide all button for the presentation slides. And it's important if you like give us some context of like why you need that, because we will understand the work and like in the problem, and maybe we can even do more on top of that, right? So in this case over here, I want to limit the visibility in the time frame of my video export, right? So for to create a 4-week look ahead, right? So this is a great way for you guys to let us know what is that you want to us to build, right? And the most the like the most requests that how do I say that? The requests are ranked on the amount of the features that we build are ranked on the amount of requests that we get, right? So if more people ask for the same thing, it's more probable, the probability of us working on it sooner than later, it gets higher, right? So there you go. I think I over-explained that part. So that this is it for the video exports. But what happens if you want to now like create a follow-up, right? So you created your 4-week look ahead, and now you have a new schedule because like things changed and whatnot. So the best way for you to create a follow-up is for you to go into your project page, and instead of changing that animation itself, I always suggest that you duplicate that scenario, and then from this scenario you can do like a 4-week look ahead for a different period, like from, I don't know, today up to I don't know, a month. Let's put it like that, right? So this is a month look ahead. So you can do something like that. And then on this new scenario that I created over here, I will go in and I will update the schedule that is connected, update the file that is connected that created my schedule. So now all the dates are updated, and you're giving people like a more accurate representation of what's happening on the next weeks. Okay, so this is a great way for you to keep that in mind and keep the team informed about like what you're doing. Cool. So this is the 4-week look ahead and planning upcoming activities and communicating that to the team. So a dedicated tool for this, this whole planning is already in our roadmap. We plan to have like a dedicated feature for that. And while we're working on that, you guys can use these steps to create that. Cool. So the next thing that I want to show today is the new scenario toolbar. And the layout that is coming, right? So most of you that are using cmBuilder already like noticed that like the toolbar over here on the top changed, and you don't have the save button anymore. Like things change place and so on. And this mainly why the reason why we're doing these changes on the layouts is so we can clear up more space on the screen to add more features, right? So the new toolbar update is already updated for everyone. So everyone is already seeing the new toolbar over here on the top. The new layout for the tools, it's an experiment. It's still an experimental stage, and I'm going to show in a minute how you can turn it on. But basically, it's moving all the tools that are over here in the bottom to the left-hand side, and more things are changing on this, right? Like the app performance tool and the settings, the visual visibility settings of your scenario is also in here. These buttons are also going to go this way. They're going to show up over here on the left-hand side, if I'm not mistaken. And this is what the reason why we're doing this whole thing is because we want to clear up this lower part of your screen to add new features in there, right? So we want to have like we are exploring different features that we want to show up there, like a timeline creation, the animation tool, right? So that today's work it's using the visual programming interface. We wanted to bring it over outside of the visual programming and put it over here in the bottom where you're going to be able to create your animations quicker, and also like maybe a Gantt viewer in the future, things like that, right? So if I go back on the screen over here, a couple things related to the toolbar that we have today is that if you're using the current layout, not the experimental one, you're gonna see that like the difference is that we'll have like these three buttons over here now. So the first one is where you access your app performance, right? You see performance indicators in real time, or you can see the visibility settings of your scenario. You can change the environmental lighting, you can hide the terrain, change the camera perspective, change the map background if you want a default, or if you want a satellite view, things like that. Also change graphics settings, blah, blah, blah. And the second button over here will give you like the other abilities, but the main thing is that the drawings will be compiled over here, and the history log, which is like one very important feature, is also shown up over here, right? So a lot of people got confused like at the beginning when we did this change because the save button is not there anymore. But the reason why is because everything was already being auto saved. Like the save button was more like as a reassuring kind of like thing. If you click save, you confirm that you saved, but everything is saved in real time, right? So the history log that you see over here is just the log of all the changes that I've done in this scenario, up to 20 active changes on the back. I can revert up to 20 uh, updates, right, on the scenario. And to revert back, you can use Control Z or Control Y from here, or you can click over here and then select a state that is like way further in the past, and then click over here to restore that state. Cool. So this is a great way for you to kind of like manage the save states of your site, but also keep in mind that like sometimes you might be working and something might have happened with your connection and you lose connection. A snack bar message over here will show up over here in the bottom, and this little green button over here will become a little triangle, right? So this triangle means that everything that you're doing is not being saved because it's the connection was lost for some reason. And then we have like the selection for viewing and editing, right? So right now I'm the editor of this scenario, so I'm here in editing mode. But if I click on this and go into viewing, this is where like I lose the power to do edits using the main tools, and the comment session will show up right away. So we'll invite you to add comments to the site as a viewer. Cool. Yeah, so these are the changes on the toolbar, and let's go to the next stage where, yeah, everything's been auto-saved. And let's go into some tips and tricks, right? So tips and tricks, the first one is how you create a slope bottom of your excavation. If you want like to have a constant slope across your excavation, right? I have two options over here that I created, and I'm going to recreate them over here on the side. But basically, if I measure in these two options the elevation on the bottom of your excavation at this side and at this side, you're going to see that the values are different, right? The bottom of the excavation is sloping uniformly towards one direction. And to do that, you can go ahead and create your cut. And there are two different ways to do that. So I'm going to create like a cut that is a little bit more uniform. My mouse is really, really bad. Okay, let's do that. And I just want to create this cut with, let's say, around 40 meters, 40 and 40. You're gonna close. Okay, cool. So now I have a cut created over there with 40 meters. The cut's not showing over here because my excavation boundary did not expand automatically. So you can go over here if that happens with you. This can happen for different reasons, but if that happens with you, you can go over here in your boundary surface and edit that to make sure, oops, something wrong is not right. What's happening with my cut? Why is it not showing? Okay, I don't know what's happening over here. So let me just go ahead and use this one then. So this cut that I created over here, as you can see, it has a ramp applied to it. So this ramp, the way that it was working is that I placed in a ramp at this elevation. Let me delete the ramp for you. And if I delete the ramp right now, like the bottom is now flat. But if I want to add a ramp to make that kind of like project process that I mentioned, I'm going to add a ramp over here on the wall of my excavation. And this ramp, I'm going to adjust it to, let me just put it to show up before at this stage. And this ramp is going to show up with default kind of like configurations. Usually the configurations is that it has a 4-meter width, it has a 30% grade, and it has a 1-to-1 soil grade over here. Okay, so this is usually how your ramp shows up. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna put in the percentage grade that you want. But before you do that, let's adjust the height, right? So the height will define like where my ramp starts over here. So if I put a height of, I don't know, like 0.5 meters, you're gonna see the ramp starts on a very like lower point, and then I can put in a percentage grade of like 2% over here, for example. So 2% is too small. If I put in like 1%, it's gonna get all the way over there. If I change it like even further, it will get like a little bit longer. So you can change these values over here to get to the point where you want. You can calculate them as well. You can just like go with a try and error like I'm doing right now. And I usually like put 0 over here to remove that stable soil angle over here on the side. And the width that I'm going to put it over here is going to be like a big width to cover the whole area. So basically now what I'm doing is that I placed in a ramp that is starting on a lower point over here and is creating that slope all the way down to the other side, right? So that's how you create like a sloped ramp. And the other option, which I apply to this cut over here, is for you to create a slope, right? So when you create a slope in cmBuilder, usually the slope will show up like this, right? So if you slope inwards, you're gonna have like something like this. So you can adjust this by deactivating the slopes on the walls that you don't want and keep the one that you want to use as a reference for like the elevation, the ramp. And then you're going to define the top elevation, which is the value of the same value that you have over here. So like the highest point on the slope that you have. So let's say that it's going to be, I don't know, 39.6 meters, something like that. And you see that slope is there, but like super small, right? So if I want to change this, what I'm going to do is this is the height and this is the length ratio of the slope. So I'm going to go here and increase this length so I can have now like my slope going all the way like to create that slope bottom, you know? So you can, let's increase this to 40 meters and we're going to get a slope like that. So now I have like the same thing created as the ramp over here on the side, but instead of adding a ramp, I created a slope. Cool. So this is how you do a slope bottom. Again, this is just using the current tools to create that final output, but we also want to create this as a dedicated feature, which is already in our roadmap. But another feature that's coming an update on the excavation side is that we're going to create a trenching tool. So in here, you're going to have like the ability to add a trench, which is basically you're going to just draw one line and select what is the profile of that trench. If it's going to be sloped, if it's going to be benched, if it's going to be a straight cut, and then we apply that to the whole line that you have over there. Cool. Let's go to the next point over here, which is the resource toggles, right? So this is still a little bit experimental, but it's something that we created, like the resource toggles to define the slopes on like cranes. Oh, sorry, not slopes, envelopes on cranes, right? So when you add a crane over here and you go into the adjust function, you have like this on and off to define the jib envelope. But we are doing some testing to see if we can use the same toggle to do other things, like, for example, putting dirt on top of a truck, right? So if I have like, you can already test this on your end with this truck over here. This is a Max CH 612 dump truck. So basically, if I go over here in my transport vehicles and I find that dump truck over there, which is this one, when I place it over here, you're gonna see that in the adjust function, we're gonna have this toggle on and off for dirt. And basically what it can do is you can go into a milestone, toggle this on, and then the dirt's gonna show up on that milestone, right? So you can create like a sequence where like these toggles will be defined by the milestones. The elements that are attached to your resource object will be defined by the toggles over here on that are connected with the milestones, right? So this is at the stage we are kind of like experimenting with this a little bit, but we plan to use this to create, like, for example, attachment to cranes, put things on top of trucks, like carrying loads, carrying excavators around and whatnot. And we also want to have this toggle to be triggered by the visual graph tool, right? So the visual programming, so you'll be able to create an animation which turning this on and off. Cool. I'm pretty sure that probably my next workshop is going to be about animation again, and I might be digging my own grave over here because we're doing a lot of updates on the animation tool, like the visual programming, and I expect to have like several new things to show on the next workshop. But I know that this is gonna come back and bite me at some point. This promise. So the last two tips and tricks that I want to show, and I'm gonna go a little bit quicker over here, is that sometimes when you're working with like your simulation, you depending on how you create your site and the layout of your site, you might not be you might not be able to visualize it from far away. Like, so if I'm looking at a 2D view, like I don't know where the fence is on this site. I don't even know where my site is if I look from a 2D view like this from far ahead away, because like all the elements that are delineating my site, they created the perimeter of my site, they are very thin, right? Like the fence panel is a very thin panel. So a great idea to do that is to use the zones and the lines to create like something like this, right? So if you have a site like that, that you want to highlight this, you can go ahead and use the 3D line, and you can project the shape of your fences to create that line, right? So of course it will work better if you have your fence all in one single element. In this case over here, it's not, but it doesn't mean that you cannot project more than one element. You just need to connect the lines that represent that element, right? So if I go over here, project, you can see that I created a whole line over here with my fence, but there are some fence panels over here that they're individual from the other. So like if I go and do a project again, I can project now this other panel over here, and then I can move this guy so they will connect, right? So I have other fence panels in this location. So I'm going to do the same thing. Then I'm going to move this guy over here and connect them. And I will bring this over all the way to the top. So if I hit confirm, this will show like a line that highlights the fence from above, because I can change now this to be like thicker and so on and so forth. So it's easier for you to visualize these elements. They are super thin from far away. And again, like just talking about updates, we have an update coming. This is going to be probably like more midterm, where whenever you activate your 2D view, the elements that you need to identify from far away, like fences, like fire hydrants, and a bunch of others, you'll be able to select to toggle to see them in the 2D view, where like fences will become lines, fire hydrants will become a symbol, and things like that. So you're going to be able to create more 2D, like uh, identify better elements on the 2D view. And the same way you can use zones to do that. So if I go over here and project the zone, and I'm going to use a line because the line already covers the whole area, and hit confirm. However, keep in mind that sometimes you're not going to have like fence panels like around the buildings that are in your surroundings. So if you do not close your zone properly, the zone will be closed for you with a line like this. But you can always go in here and then edit this line to create other panels. And a lot of people don't know this, but for you to add a new point to a line, you just need to go over here in the line function and then click on any point of an existing line, and you will add an interrupting point. Cool. So when you hit confirm, now that zone is showing over there, and it's very, very easy to identify where my site is from far away. Cool. And the last tips and tricks that I want to show you today is how to create a browser app, right? So I noticed that I'm not sure if this is like an update on Chrome side or anything like that, but the other day I opened Chrome and started using cmBuilder, and there was like a notification over here asking if I wanted to create an app from this site, right? So this is something that you can do. So basically, it will take whatever is the URL that you are at the moment. And for Chrome, what you need to do is to come in here in the 3D dot menu, then go into cast, save, and share, and then click over here, install page as an app. So basically, if you're installing the page to a scenario that represents a project, of course, you're going to put the name of that scenario over there, right? So that pool is the best. And when I hit install, this will create a app that is basically like a dedicated window to your scenario. And you can also pin this to your taskbar. So if you wanted to like have this accessible at all times over here, right? But basically, it's just like a dedicated window for this to that URL, basically. Cool. And then it's an easy way for you to open and close cmBuilder quickly. And if you want to do that on Edge, basically the idea is that you go through here, the 3 dot menu, and then you're going to go into apps, and then go over here, install this site as an app, and it's going to be exactly the same thing, and it's going to become like an app on your computer, right? So it's literally an app. So like if you want to remove that, you can go and type in like cmBuilder over here. In my case, I put that pool, right? So that pool is the best, is the name of the app, and then I can uninstall this if I want to remove it from my computer. Cool. So I think that's it for today. Let's go back over here in my presentation and wrap it up. So like what we learned today was how to work with without beam models whenever you were like in a pursuit, in the very early stages of your project, and you don't have a 3D model to work with. You have now like a complete tool set to create like things a little with more detail and faster as well. You now also know how to plan upcoming activities like 4 weeks look aheads and things like that. What are the differences in our new scenario toolbar, and a couple of tips and tricks to help you guys work a little bit faster and more efficiently. Cool. So this is the main part of our today's workshop. So anyone that doesn't want to hang around with like questions or anything like that, you're free to go. But also drop in questions over here. And if you want me to simulate things that are not even related to this today's workshop, just like random questions, you can also drop in here, and I'll be happy to help you with that. Okay. I believe that no one has any questions. So we are good to finish this, Nikon? All good?
Yeah, I think I don't see any questions in the chat or Q&A.
I'll leave you guys with this great background over here of these two guys hugging each other. I think that this song also helps with that whole whole vibe that's going on over there, that chemistry. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a nice one.